Hey everybody, hope you are having an okay weekend. It is, I don't even know what day it is. It's Saturday, but this is going to be a little bit longer of a video, and then there's going to be a blog post that I'm going to put out on the website at ontheblueline.com. That'll go into more detail, but pretty much the bottom line up front is the podcast is going to have to end for the time being, and probably for a few years, and then hopefully eventually we will get back to it, maybe, or something like it, and we'll see. But that's years from now, and that's going to be another conversation for another day. But those of you who've been watching the podcast and listening to the podcast over the years, I didn't want to leave you hanging. It's kind of funny looking back over it. Not funny, haha, but funny, ironic that, we've been through since 2019 when I started the podcast. We've been through the loss of a partner, law enforcement partner to suicide, the death of my father, the heart valve surgery that put me out for nearly a year, open heart surgery. And now it is actually Hurricane Milton that led to the final end of this podcast. I don't know if this has been a testament of just foolish tenacity, or maybe the universe is trying to tell us something, but it is finally officially over. So not a decision I came to lightly, but essentially here's what's happened. First of all, we're very blessed. Everybody was physically fine through the hurricane Milton. However, we have still been in an Alpha Bravo schedule. For those of you who don't know, I do actually work in the career that I talk to. And so we've been doing the 12 hours on, 12 hours off for days now. And we're continuing to help. And what occurred was the morning after the hurricane, unfortunately, due to a lot of unscrupulous developments and just absolutely foolish decisions by bureaucrats, they kind of reworked, with all the unprecedented growth in the state of Florida, reworked the way water flowed. And so it actually forced the water from some nearby lakes and so forth into a residential area where my house is. And the house that I live in has been there since 1926 and has never flooded, so it's not in a flood zone. And as you will see from the videos that I'll post, provided I can get to some Wi-Fi, it flooded the entire property and the houses, and so we'll see. I mean, they can probably be recovered. We certainly will try to do our best to do that, but it's not a week project, it's not a month project, and it is probably a year's project, especially on a law enforcement salary, because the bad news is there's of course no insurance, because I don't live in a flood zone and it's so high and dry and it hasn't flooded in 100 years. It's not even in like a 100-year flood zone, 500-year flood zone. It's just not in a flood zone because it never has flooded, because the water always went through the watershed, where they now have built a community and forced all that water into this area, which changed everything. So having no flood insurance, those of you who've been through it, it doesn't matter that it was a hurricane that created it. And I know there's some viral videos going around online that, well, it's not a flood, it's a hurricane. We'll see. We'll fight the bureaucracy. Those of you who've listened to me for the last 5 years know that at a minimum, that's what I will do. And I kind of feel like that's where I'm at, right? It's time to kind of man up, suck it up, like I've said over and over again on here. And it's time to, to put nose to the proverbial grindstone and get at it. And that's what I intend to do. And unfortunately, the time and resources that that's going to take is going to force me to step away from the podcast. I do want to say a couple things though real quick, and again, I know this is a longer video and I apologize, but first of all, it's truly been a privilege over the last 5 years. I grew up listening to talk radio, the guys like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and I always wanted to do that. There was a local DJ I listened to. I love listening to him and just the influence it had on my young life, and I always wanted to do it. I thought it's just so cool, right? To be able to come and sit down and talk to you guys, and people that I'll never meet and I hear from, and to be able to have had some positive influence in your life and to have these conversations. It is just the most, it's amazing, right? But unfortunately, it was also never monetized due to probably my own incompetence, naivete, whatever word you want to use. I just don't know what the hell I'm doing, whatever it is. It's a numbers game, and I know some people figured out at lower numbers. I never did, and so it was never monetized. So it's really just been a labor of love for 5 years, and kind of an expensive labor of love. And so calling it a business is laughable, and it's just not something that's sustainable right now with everything else. I've got to A, cut back, and B, I'm just not going to have the time, and without a staff to help with, you know, editing and those kind of things, there's just no way to balance them. So I regret to pass that, to step away from it. But the other thing I really want to say is the audience for this podcast. So the dream of the podcast was to grow it into, you know, a daily show, news, societal issues, and just give people hope, right? And for the last 5 years, my audience has been primarily law enforcement, and I've gotten to hear from some of you guys. I've had some people reach out recently, and it's just cool to have such a neat group of people that I get to serve and to have spoken to and to hopefully have helped in some way. It's truly amazing. The last week, I've been living, of course, don't have a house currently, so living at the office and doing the 12 on, 12 off and sleeping on a cot in there, and just being around this 24-hour operation and seeing the men and women out here from all over the state just doing the amazing work every day. Their own, no power for them, no hot showers, maybe limited food, their family's on edge, maybe they've got destruction at their house, and they're still out here serving the community. And to be counted among such a neat group of people, people like you who are listening to this, if you are in that law enforcement community, it's just such an amazing opportunity and blessing, and I truly am forever thankful. So I don't know where we go from here. Like I said, at this point, I'm not even going to guess. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging either. After the heart surgery, it was almost 10 months before more episodes came out. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to just our focus. So I'm going to just stop everything. I'll put it out online. You'll see these videos and so forth. I got a blog post that it goes in a little more detail because writing is my true passion. And I'm going to push that out as well, just so everyone can see it and kind of know what happened, so we don't just disappear again. The other thing I want to mention is, for those of you who are civilians, just remember what law enforcement, you hear the cliche, you don't know what they are going through when you get someone's a little gruff on a traffic stop or something like that. And I'm not advocating for bad behavior, short tempers, or any of that. Professionalism, all times, I get it. But just understand that there's a human side to that badge, a human side to that uniform, and a human side to what that individual is bringing each and every day. And maybe try to have a little patience. And if you run into them at a store or a gas station or a restaurant, say thank you, especially now. If you're in the state of Florida and you're running into them somewhere, just thank you for it. Just a simple, hey, you have no idea what it means to me that you're still here doing this for us. So, all right, new ending. So for those of you who've been listening to the podcast, you know the ending. So I will not see you next week in the podcast, but I will, for as long as I'm physically able, see you out there on the blue line. Thank you again. Wang out.